Today, Turn Washington is continuing our conversation with Republican Representative Brad Klippert from the 8th Legislative District. Welcome to the program, Brad.
Thank you, ma'am.
Can you share where the 8th Legislative District is?
The 8th Legislative District is in southeastern Washington. It encompasses West Richland, and most of Kennewick, Washington.
A lot of people are really concerned in the midst of the coronavirus outbreak about the governor's rather broad, sometimes extreme authoritarian powers. Can you share any of your comments about the governor's actions in the last few weeks?
The governor's actions in the last few weeks are not actions that I would have taken if I were in his place. Say, for instance, our constitutionally protected right to worship God as we choose to is protected both by the Washington State Constitution and the U.S. Constitution. And it's breaking my heart and hundreds of thousands of citizens in Washington State who the governor says you cannot worship in your church at this time. And to me, that is totally and completely unacceptable. So I have a bill that's already been drafted and is ready that would say that after 30 days of emergency powers, the governors would have to get legislative approval to continue the actions that he's doing now. So we are working together now to try to make sure that this never, ever happens in our state again.
One of the things that I found especially egregious the last few weeks is that the governor labeled the church as non-essential, which you just mentioned about the church's doors being closed, but abortion clinics and marijuana stores were allowed to operate. Can you share any of your thoughts about that?
Not only allowed to operate, they were thought by him to be essential and church non-essential. Absolutely, positively unacceptable in my mind. When I talked to the governor's office, I asked them why that is. What you just said, why is that happening? And I also talked to them about why are people being allowed to protest in the streets and burn buildings and come violently against law enforcement, but they're not allowed to go to church. And their response, the governor's response to me was, Representative Klippert, going to church is an allowed activity. These other activities are not allowed activities, and I was not allowed to respond. And I want to say, allowed activity, are you kidding me? It's a constitutionally protected right to be able to worship God as we choose to, both in Washington State and in the U.S. Constitution. And he's calling it an allowed activity. Unacceptable.
Well, you mentioned something that's been happening across the state, and that is protesters calling for the defunding of police. That's even happening right here in Olympia, where I live. Can you share your thoughts about that and what would happen if we did defund the police fully?
Well, I'm a part of a part-time legislature. The last 5 days I worked as a law enforcement officer, and I shared in a previous meeting that was taking place in Olympia at how tough the last 2 days have been for me, seeing how my fellow law-abiding citizens have been victimized by perpetrators. And it breaks my heart to see them victimized over and over and over again. So to defund the police just absolutely makes my mind want to explode, because I've been a law enforcement officer for 26 years, and the people that I work with, our number one concern is serving our community. We don't care the color of your skin. We don't care about your ethnic origin, your religious beliefs, your sex or your sexual orientation, any of that. What we care about is enforcing the law and serving and protecting the people of our community. So to defund the police would be the absolute opposite thing of what I think needs to happen in our communities, our state, and our nation.
One of the very controversial topics that is happening in our state right now is that people who need to get unemployment checks are unable to, and yet our state's Employment Security Department has lost between $350 million to $1 billion. What do you have to say to people out there that are really upset? I mean, like, more than just upset, they can't pay for their groceries, they can't pay for their rent. They've done what the governor had to say, and they're still not able to get a check.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm so very, very upset at our governor and his lack of leadership, because he said that, well, your job is essential, but your job is not. Your business is essential, but your business is not. Every job is essential for the person who has that job and is supporting their family with it. Every business is essential for that person who owns that business and is supporting their family and their community with it. So to say that those businesses, those jobs are not essential is wrong. And now with the promises, oh, well, if we do this, you're going to get a check coming in the mail to you. And then those checks don't come. And now I can't pay my bills. I can't feed my family. absolutely a lack of leadership on his part and those people that he has set up to run that part of our government, and he's not doing anything to correct the problem. It's a total and complete lack of leadership on his part.
Speaking of lack of leadership, I know that some people out there have been complaining that the legislature seems like they're really, really quiet right now. And I know that people would like to see some kind of a stop of the governor's powers or some way of putting him on a shorter leash. Do you think that there will be a special session? And if there is a special session, what will happen?
Well, I hope we, the Republican caucus, both in the House and the Senate, have been asking for weeks and now months for a special session. The governor is ignoring our request. We need all four corners. I have heard that one of the majority leaders has said, yes, I think we should meet in special session, however, a fourth has said no. Will there be a special session? There absolutely positively has to be a special session to adjust the budget. And we have bills out there to rein in the governor's emergency powers to no more than 30 days. In fact, another bill has no more than 14 days without legislative approval, because our founding fathers set up a government of checks and balances, three branches of the legislature, and now only one of those branches is leading in Washington state, and that is totally and completely unacceptable. Our founding fathers set our government up to protect the people from an out-of-control government, and right now we have an out-of-control government, and he is not honoring our Constitution, and the people are suffering because of it.